This video walks you through the workshop process I use to make a 35 pocket long wallet. After you have designed and built a few wallets, you will probably discover that everyone will want something a little different. Some people want to carry a minimalist type wallet with only a few card pockets for identification and payment cards, but others will want to carry a lot more than that, so making a custom wallet is about the individual using it. Custom wallets can be made accurately and efficiently, so hopefully you can benefit by some of these tips and tricks. Making this wallet all by hand took me about 45 hours using about 5 feet of the highest quality vegetable tan saddle leather, a foot of very tough and durable pigskin as a liner, and I like to use more natural and eco-friendly products when possible, so I like to have all the materials and shop supplies I need, or at least on order before I start. After I figure out what I want to make, I start by drawing a sketch, then draft the pattern in AutoCAD, because it is easier, faster, and more accurate than a traditional drafting table. But you need a starting point, which for this wallet was an 8-inch by 11-inch wallet back. From there I added a raised and line grip on the spine of the wallet and added a 3-inch pull tab strap and keeper type closure. Areas of higher wear like the corners, top of the keeper, and outside edge of the strap can benefit by a little wear leather, and all the other little details with the layout of the types and quantities of pockets can be drafted into the design, including the hardware, thread, and colors I want to use. I then cut the pattern pieces out of 1/8 of an inch acrylic with a laser printer and use them as cutout templates that I clamp on top of a section of a leather hide and cut around with a hobby knife. When there are lots of leather parts, it is essential to keep them organized. All the pieces of the wallet back, including the strap latch assembly, were cut from a side of vegetable tan saddle leather, split to 4 ounce, and the interior is assembled from a side split to 2 ounce. The number of card pockets was divided between two 8-inch by 9-inch bifold sections, creating two document, cash, or phone pockets behind them. The double card pockets are 8-inch by 2-inch, and they are sewn together on 8-inch by 4-inch horizontal card panels before being sewn into the bifold sections. And vertical 3-inch by 3-inch card pockets are sewn onto the top, with one of the pockets having an open window for identification. I like to mark my stitching seams 1/8 of an inch from the edge with a heavy set of dividers, and the stitching chisels I like to use are Crimson Hides 5mm. The double prong is the only chisel I use when punching around a curve. A safety tip to keep in mind when making wallets is that repetitive tasks can cause injuries over time. So keeping my tools sharp so I do not need to apply extra force and positioning them in the most ergonomic way helps to reduce stress on my joints and tendons. I like to use an airbrush to apply dye quickly and evenly, then use a small sponge to finish the exposed edges before finishing them with gum tragicant and acrylic edge paints. Then I seal the backs with acrylic top coat and use a heavy piece of glass with round smoothed over edges as a burnishing tool to compress the fibers and make the backs as flat as possible, then apply a little conditioner to the top. After gluing, a marble slab is perfect for flattening the seam with a small leatherworker's finishing hammer. The pockets are all sewn in place one at a time, so a finishing hammer helps to set the stitches to protect the thread from getting caught. And since I can't get at the pockets easily to condition after they are sewn into the wallet, I use a lot of conditioner before attaching the finished parts. A useful workshop tip is to skybe the edges of leather on a piece of marble, because the marble is flat and smooth and will have less chance of scratching the finished leather surface. Since all the pockets are made from very thin 2-ounce strap leather, I am careful not to cut through the natural edge. I am sure many people will agree that making wallets can be an art form, and creating an environment with the right tools for the job as well as the right surfaces, organization, and ventilation strategies help make the hobby more enjoyable. I always seem to be adding to my collection of drawing patterns, jigs, molds, marble slabs, punching blocks, cutting mats, and punch pads, as well as more of the essential tools like accurate dividers, an assortment of detailed edge bevelers, stitching chisels, skiving knives, cutting blades, airbrushes, or even a high-tech laser printer and tool accessories, which all help to improve my experience with the functional art I choose to make. Gluing is an important part of the wallet making process, so the acrylic pattern pieces are used as glue-up jigs to help keep the parts square while drying, and wooden dowels are useful to smooth out any air pockets when gluing around a curve. A tip to make sure the attachment tabs on the pockets will fit perfectly: make them slightly larger, at least 1/8 of an inch on both sides, then the remaining can be removed after they are glued in place. and a round knife is a good tool to trim the sides flush. After gluing, the stitching holes can be punched through, and a small piece of leather can be used to protect the surface from scratching against the marks on your punching block. You can also mark the stitching holes before gluing and punch the holes through with a stitching awl. When we make a wallet by hand, all the details are important. Taking the time to sand off the dry glue with sanding sticks and rounding over the edges with an edge beveler will make it easier to burnish and apply edge paint. A useful tip is to keep your skiving knives as sharp as they can be to create a uniform flat seam, especially when working with smaller, more complicated edges. A useful workshop tip is to use the acrylic patterns throughout the process of making the wallet because they help line up the pieces to make excellent glue-up jigs, and since the thickness of leather is generally thin when making a card wallet with lots of pockets, small electrical clips help to create a strong flat bond, which helps to keep the wallet parts square and easier to attach. A useful tip is to trap the thread before gluing two joining seams together to align the holes. Punching the holes through from the stitch mark top with an awl is better than trying to punch both sides separately and lining the holes up after. There are a few reasons why this is a problem, but mainly the flexible nature of leather makes it almost impossible when the glue expands into some holes but not the others. I find that any obstructions in the stitching holes that make my needle stick is hard on my fingers and makes it so easy to catch a thread, so I have to slow down to cut it out. A sharp awl opens the hole wide so it is easier to pass the needles through. When backstitching, a scratch awl is essential, and I really like a battery-powered thread zapper to cut off the remaining thread. A technique I like to use is to glue and stitch around a curve to help keep a natural shape as the wallet is being used. So all leather latches or closures are unique and should be made to fit. Raised and lined elements of the wallet, like the strap, pull tab, and keeper, helps to strengthen the parts as well as protecting the stitching with a sunken seam. As a maker, I enjoy adding unique details like raised and lined dimples on the spine of the wallet to create a grip. The molded raised parts are filled with scrap leather and then sewn in, and a useful tip is to carefully apply the glue to avoid the excess spilling out where the glue is not wanted. After the pigskin lining is glued in and trimmed flush with the wallet back, the bifold sections are glued and sewn in one side at a time. I like to finish the edges by sanding flush to remove the spilled glue, then bevel the edges, color the edge with dye, and burnish with a slicking agent before applying edge paint and layers, with sanding the edge flat between each layer to get a smooth finish. This process is time-consuming but necessary to create a durable edge. Conditioner changes the wallet building materials into a soft and supple luxury leather wallet that improves with age as it patinas and should be applied regularly to keep the wallet functioning well. A bone folder is a necessary tool to open up the pockets to make sure all the cards will fit. The pockets are snug at first but droop to the shape of the cards as they are being used. You want the pockets tight so the cards don't fall out, but not so tight that the cards are difficult to retrieve.